he definitely got that back. Okay. Now, some recent behind-the-scenes developments might actually give a little bit of backstory as to explain why Rod Wave might have been crashing out a little bit recently, and some people are saying it's kind of like the past repeating itself. So Rod Wave, let's go all the way back, right, and just recap some of Rod Wave's interesting and colourful past. So he actually grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, not St. Petersburg, Russia, St. Petersburg, Florida. I'd much rather be there. And despite its small size, St. Pete has apparently been experiencing gang problems from as early as 2006. Okay, there's been serious gangs there. They're saying that Pinellas County is not immune to the neighborhood street gangs. Okay, even in St. Pete, the gangs get busy out there. It says the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office is concerned enough about street gangs that its intelligence unit is monitoring them. St. Petersburg has the most gang activities, but there are groups throughout the country that challenge law enforcement. Most are neighborhood gangs, says Detective Anthony Gentile of the Gang Intelligence Unit. They are named after the streets where they live, or neighborhoods, or even housing developments. The unit, under command of Sergeant Joseph Manning, investigates everything from street gangs to organized crime. Asian gangs, with members from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, have staked places like Pinellas Park and Lilman as their turf. There are followers and there are leaders, just like any place else, Gentile said. Some gang members are violent, while others are not. The Asian gangs formed in
Let me back it up for y'all, man. I'm so blue right now. I ain't gonna lie, bro. This shit just blew me.
according to an arrest warrant obtained by Atlanta New First Police, they observed
Hold on, man. I'm blue. Like, this just blew me.
within hours of getting nominated for a Grammy.
This man got nominated for a Grammy.
Some people are upset.
And the same day, he get arrested the same day. It can't be the same day, man. Like, for real, it can't be the same day. That's just...
During his arrest, it says the police found a baby bottle with suspected lean, oxycodones, and 2 firearms during Rod Wave's recent arrest on weapon and drug charges. The Florida native was arrested in Atlanta on November the 7th. According to an arrest warrant obtained by Atlanta New First Police, they observed Rod speeding through a stop sign in northwest Atlanta at 7:30 p.m. He appeared to be going 45 and 35. An officer got behind the rapper, who eventually pulled into a nearby gas station. The officer turned on his headlights and ordered Rod to turn off his vehicle. The officer then assisted him out of the vehicle. Now that's a little bit ominous. Are they saying he needed help to get out of the vehicle, or are they saying that he wasn't trying to get out of the vehicle, so they kindly assisted him with some force? I don't know. But it says they informed him he was under arrest for reckless driving, according to the warrant. And during a pat-down, the officer discovered a .40 caliber Glock with a high-capacity magazine in the crooner's waistband.
That 40 Glock.
Crooner, not Gooner. And police also discovered a baby bottle containing 1 fluid ounce of purple liquid. You got to be careful of that purple liquid, man. The officers suspected it to be lean. And in Rod's vehicle, they allegedly found more suspected promethazine along with oxycodone, a beige Sig Sauer P329 millimeter gun. I don't know if that was a handgun. I don't know enough about guns. A backpack filled with bundles of cash. I'm sure that was legitimate money. The guy's nominated for a Grammy. Come on, give him a break. The police would then search Rod's passenger, Jerron Biner, and discovered a small amount of marijuana. That's the least of his worries really here. Rod was ultimately arrested and charged with reckless driving, 2 counts of possession of a controlled substance, and possession of a firearm or knife. And Biner was also arrested and charged with possession of a firearm, 2 counts of drug possession, and Rod and Biner denied ownership of the suspected narcotics. Rod Wave's attorney, Drew Findling, all right, so you know he's coming home. He's coming home yesterday, all right? He's released the following statement to XXL regarding Rod's arrest. On November the 7th, the same day Rodarius Green earned a Grammy nomination, he was unjustly profiled and unlawfully arrested in Atlanta, the statement reads. The arresting officer belongs to the Atlanta Police Department's Controversial Crime Suppression Unit, a group known for its aggressive tactics and emphasis on high arrest numbers rather than genuine public safety. Mr. Green was targeted as part of this quota-driven approach.
Hold on. We gotta back it up. I just peeped something.
The warrant, and during a pat-down...
Check this out.
In northwest Atlanta at 7:30 p.m., he appeared to be going 45 and 35. An officer got behind the rapper, who eventually pulled into a nearby gas station. The officer turned on his headlights and ordered Rod to turn off his vehicle. The officer then assisted him out of the vehicle. Now that's a little bit ominous. Are they saying he needed help to get out of the vehicle, or are they...
Now look, that might be his only way to beat this case. They could easily say, oh, They didn't have probable cause to take him out the car. They didn't have probable cause to search his vehicle. You feel me? So he might be able to beat this. But still in all, my boy. Bro, I love Rod Wave, bro. But he gotta be addicted to that shit, bro. You know better than to be riding around with possessing any substances, bro. Like, you know better, bro. You gotta be addicted, bro. You gotta be addicted, bro. You just got nominated for a Grammy. You got so much money, bro. And you riding around with substances. You feel me? Like, why you, bro, do that shit at home, bro. Leave that shit at the crib, gang. You got guns in the car, bro, and substances is, you don't need the substances with you in the car, bro. Oh my goodness, bro. I can't believe this just happened to my boy. My boy, you know better, bro. Oh my goodness, bro.
What often happens is some people like to make the whole gang thing about
I
race.
hope he
I
beat it,
personally
though.
don't. It's really often
Hold on, let's back this up.
a place where every race, every creed is getting busy in the streets and turning to the gang life. It sounds like it's getting serious over there. Well, it was serious over there. This is old news. But it says calls to the Clearwater Police regarding gang activities.
Hold on, where was we at?
County is not immune to the neighborhood street
Oh,
gangs
okay,
where
right
even in
here.
St. Pete, the gangs get busy out there. It says the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office is concerned enough about street gangs that its intelligence unit is monitoring them. St. Petersburg has the most gang activities, but there are groups throughout the country that challenge law enforcement. Most are neighborhood gangs, says Detective Anthony Gentile of the Gang Intelligence Unit. They're named after the streets where they live, or neighborhoods, or even housing developments. The unit, under command of Sergeant Joseph Manning, investigates everything from street gangs to organized crime. Asian gangs with members from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia have stayed to places like Pinellas Park and Lilman as their turf. There are followers and there are leaders, just like any place else, Gentile said. Some gang members are violent, while others are not. The Asian gangs formed in Pinellas County after the Vietnam War. Different factions challenge each other, and there are fights and drive-by shootings. Though not common, they do happen. No one was ever hit by gunfire, but cars and homes have been damaged, Gentile said. There's now an upsurge in Hispanic gangs, and African-American gangs are prevalent in South St. Petersburg, while white gangs have been identified in the Clearwater area. So basically, it's a diverse place where every race, every creed is getting busy in the streets and turning to the gang life. It sounds like it's getting serious over there, or was serious over there. This is old news. But it says calls to the Clearwater Police regarding gang activities in the city were not returned. The Sheriff's Office works with municipal agencies to keep tabs on local troublemakers. Nationally known groups such as the Bloods and Crips have been identified in Pinellas County, but police say they are independent of their California counterparts. Gentile said some gangs are organized enough to have written rules and regular meetings, though most are not. So, look, this is where Rod Wave kind of grew up, and this is kind of some of the stuff that he was around growing up. And what's interesting, okay, is actually St. Pete's native actor and comedian Calamar White would actually explain on the In Departments podcast that the city is actually split between the wealthier north side and the less well-off south side. And, we're talking about all these different gangs from different races. And I think what often happens is some people like to make the whole gang thing about race. I personally don't. It's really often about poverty. It's people that are driven, to break the law and act kind of outside the confines of the law to try and make a living and get by, because they're maybe not getting the support that they need or that they deserve from society, and that leads, as we see here, white gangs, black gangs, Vietnamese gangs, all different types of gangs, Hispanic gangs, to have to, go outside of the law to try and support themselves. And, like I say, Calamar White kind of breaks down the streets of St. Pete's for us here.
Growing up, niggas, she's in the east, west side, north side, like, how's y'all city divide? Because I know all cities is different when it comes to. Oh, no, we just got north and south. Like, the south side where all the black people at. The north side is like where the white people at. You feel me? Like when niggas be catching plays and shit, niggas I'm gonna go across north type of shit. You feel me? That's where all the smokers and the buddies and shit at like that. But as you go deeper north, that's where like the fancy shit at. So when people from the south south side saying, I'm finna move away, I'm finna get away, damn, I'm going nowhere, but deeper north, like, bitch, you still like right here.
I find all this stuff kind of interesting, and I feel like, it's so easy to just talk about, the gang violence, everybody's killing each other. It's like, a lot of racism and segregation that have been prevalent for decades in America. I feel like the gangs and the inner city, downtrodden areas where a lot of gang violence is going on, I feel like often they live in the shadow of this segregation that's happened years ago. I've talked in videos about redlining and how, African Americans have been pushed into communities away from maybe the wealthier areas where white people kind of took over and they kind of ghettoized certain parts of America. And I feel like even decades on from, the civil rights movement and kind of like segregation, at least officially, formally being ended, I feel like you still unfortunately have communities that are not really getting a fair shake and not really being treated the same. And as he says, you've got the kind of the wealthy white communities in the north and a lot of the downtrodden black communities in the south. And unfortunately, those are the communities where people don't have enough opportunities and they have to resort to other means to try and feed themselves, to feed their families. And you've got to have an understanding for that. That's not to say that we support and that we condone any, all blanket, just violence, gang, just everyone break the law and do what you got to do. But it's like, it's all about having a deeper understanding of maybe the reasons why people do things. Now, Rod Wave himself, obviously, he's growing up around this environment, right? And by the time he reached middle school, he was undergoing a lot of hardships too that kind of made his life difficult. He actually revealed in an interview with DJ Small's Eyes that he actually lost his father. His father was kind of taken from him. He was locked up around 2006. And by the time he got to middle school, all of the real serious male role models in his life were no longer around. And that kind of made life a lot harder for him. And maybe is why that he, was forced to get into difficult situations. Maybe that's why he had to feel like he had to carry a firearm, even at this level of success where he's getting nominated for a Grammy. Let's just hear this.
How old were you when you went to prison? Went to school like right before middle school. That's when we came. I went to jail.
How much time did you serve in prison?
6 years.
For what?
In school, I used to look his shit up, look his name up on the internet. I know he had marijuana possession, attempted murder, tampering with state witness, shit like that. I used to look his name up on Google and shit. And the teacher be like, man, what you looking at shit right on my agenda? You don't know if y'all want to be looking at this kind of stuff. But then what he looking at in school, you know what I'm saying? You won't be stealth in that.
That's super interesting, right? He's really, going through this pain. Obviously, he makes this very emotional pain music now at this stage in his life when he's been successful. But he's talking about being a kid, and essentially, he's having to find out secondhand on Google that his father's facing serious charges, drug charges, attempted murder, all this kind of stuff, right? And it's not just his father, because apparently, by the time that he was still growing up, all the way back, not just his father, but his uncle, D, would also later go to prison on drug charges too. So again, he's just losing all of his.
Yep, he said that in one of his songs. He said that.
That should be role models to him. He's growing up around this stuff. People are catching drug charges. So this is the article that kind of explains the drug ring that his uncle D actually ended up going to jail on. It says deputies say the drug ring is broken, and several people were arrested. I can't see how many people were arrested. Okay, it says 9 people were arrested, including 4 in St. Pete's. It said using rental cars and shipping companies, a St. Petersburg-based drug ring smuggled more than 8,000 pounds of marijuana from Mexico to Pinellas County in the last 2 years. The operation. Some of that pot ended up in the hands of street-level dealers, whose arrest in 2006 helped investigators begin to piece together the largest smuggling operation. On Thursday, after an 18-month investigation, authorities announced that they had broken up the ring and arrested 9 people on federal trafficking charges. 4 of the arrests were made in St. Pete's and 4 in Tucson, Arizona, and 1 in Las Vegas. The operation was dubbed the Cannabis Express, involved local, state, and federal agencies, and seized a total of 2,000 pounds of marijuana and $150,000 in cash. The Cannabis Express, this are serious. This a real drug ring. This a big drug ring. You know what I'm saying? This is. They was really
Cannabis Express. Is that what they just said, bro? They did not just say that.
In 2006, helped investigators begin to piece together the largest smuggling operation. On Thursday, after an 18-month
Cannabis Express, bro. 2,000
a ring,
pounds.
and they're basically saying that it was a big arrest. Everyone got busted. He wasn't the ringleader, but there was a lot of activity going on, and it goes to talk about kind of the criminal records of the people involved. But yeah, it did look like it was a pretty serious drug ring going on. And now with all of this going on, okay, his important male role models in his life getting jammed up and arrested for all these different things. According to Rod Wave, he started the life of crime at just age 13. He started stealing money around that age when he'd just become a teenager, and really, really kind of operating outside the boundaries of the law, like the male role models in his life did too. So
when my dad was going, I was just getting into shit about money. Like I had tried to get a job, shit, I was too young, for a real job. So like a couple niggas out the neighborhood, like breaking a car, like the boy was hitting like 500-600. They like 13, you know what I'm saying? They hitting. So when I used to see that, I was like, damn, bro, I'm trying to get right. Boy, just 600. I'll be straight for school, bro. Probably your mama or something. So when pops was going, like, definitely got to it. It was just the people I was hanging around, you know what I'm saying? That showed me a lot of the shit. Because at first I had a plan to get this job, stack his cheese, but that shit wasn't where that was at.
So, he's saying that originally he wanted to have like a straight job. He wanted to have, get into honest employment. But he said everyone was hitting. They was hitting cars, getting 5, 6, like they was getting the bag. Okay. And basically the next year things got even more serious. It got more than just stealing and robbing money from people. It actually got to the point where he was carrying firearms, and he was actually charged with shooting a team with a stolen revolver. And he
nigga tried to like niggas with a group of niggas that they tried to like take my gun. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I ain't gonna take a gun from you, like, you know what I'm saying? You can't take a gun. Like, shit, I'm gonna go down with that. So, I don't know if it was like, that use of a firearm or whatever the shit was, but I had those two charges. But the nigga didn't press charges on me because, you know what I'm saying? Like, you niggas street niggas, so he ain't press charges on me, but the state kept trying to pick my shit up. Like, okay, you don't want to press charges, but you know what I'm saying? I had that shit, but I didn't even understand what the fuck was going on. But I had, but the main shit was trying to fuck me up about that on burger, like, on yourself, got hit for the gun in the house.
So they was trying to put these charges on him, even though the person that he basically ended up shooting didn't want to press charges because they were all kind of on some street stuff and they basically all knew what they signed up for. But he said that the state was still trying to put them charges on him. So he was knowing what it's like to get on the wrong side of the law from a very young age. Now, according to Rod, after this incident, his father, who had just got out of prison at that point, sat him down and actually talked some sense into him. Which just goes to show you, just because your dad's in the streets and getting involved in trouble like that, he can still sit you down and try and at least give you a little bit of guidance to give you a better life. And clearly, Rod Wave went on to have much more success outside of the streets than in the streets.
For that JDC shit, they gonna do it to your ass, you know what I'm saying? But me, I was lucky. My dad just came home and he sat me down and was like, man, listen, he came to see me actually. And I was like, bro, this shit you doing is serious, bro. Like, they gonna see you as a prison, bro. Like, you think that shit spooked me. You know what I'm saying? So, but they let me walk on that one. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, my ass getting any trouble, boy. They gonna do it to your ass. So they want you back. But you know what I'm saying? The state was like, they look stupid in court, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get in no trouble, he ain't know, you know what I'm saying? So one of them, they can really, like, fuck me up, like.
But so he kind of got back onto, got back on the straight and narrow path, right? And aside from, one particularly widely reported incident where he apparently brought a pellet gun to school in 2017, he mostly stayed out of trouble and he stayed on kind of the righteous path for a period of time after this.
Following breaking news out of St. Petersburg, police just telling us that they have arrested a student for bringing a pellet gun to Lakewood High School. Officers say a teacher saw a photo on social media showing the 18-year-old posing with a gun. A school resource officer stopped that student and found the pellet gun in his backpack.
Now, that was apparently Rod Wave, okay? They're saying, bro, Rod Wave pulled out a pellet gun at his own school. Right? Now, hopefully Drew Findling can, whatever sticks that Rod got caught with in that car recently, Drew Findling can have them reclassified as pellet guns. Hopefully they were just pellet guns, you know what I'm saying? We'll be able to see him home soon and all of that stuff, man. But essentially what's really interesting is eventually his Uncle D actually got out of prison after those serious charges where he was caught up in that big, drug ring that they took down. Basically, he actually came back out and started managing Rod Wave. Like, Rod, he was onto his music thing. His uncle came out, and basically he was able to, help him not just help Rod kind of stay out of the streets, but then also for Rod to give his uncle an opportunity to use some of his street smarts and his business savvy to actually help him, better navigate his career and protect him from the dark, dingy kind of pitfalls of the music industry.
That's lit. His own uncle was his manager.
He was getting him the shows, from waking him up,
Sometimes nigga have no love on the door. That nigga, when we got that little money from alimony, that nigga pump. That nigga sight. That's not every day, man. Get up, man. We gotta go, man. We gotta get out here on this road. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So shit, that nigga was like, oh boy, without you, boy, I was kind of excited. What's like?
So this is Uncle D himself, right? And he's done an interview. Shout out to Revolt TV. I mean, kind of shout out to Revolt TV, but we know what Revolt TV is, so you got to be careful. But I do like this interview. But Uncle D kind of got on this interview, shared stories from his past. This is definitely an interview worth checking out. But he was literally got to the point where he was actually, dragging Rod Wave out of bed, waking him up, letting him know, like, yo, like, we're going to keep you on track. Like, you got a real opportunity here. I need to make sure that you are on point, okay? And I think that's really inspiring as far as, like, his uncle that was deep in the streets actually helping him kind of, stay on track with his legitimate business. And I really respect that. Now, as time went on, okay, essentially from the start, like from Rod Wave's career kind of kicking off, he was always known for these kind of deep and really personal lyrics. And he would actually discuss one of his iconic lines from his 2019 track, True Story, in this Off the Porch interview. And I think it's interesting and relevant to what we're talking about today.
On True Story, you got this line that a lot of fans have been retweeting, saying that Jeezy told his trap or die, but then told his son to go to college.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a lot of rappers are misleading the youth like that?
It ain't. What people misunderstood about that is some people don't want to hear the truth. People scared of the truth. You see what I'm saying? So a nigga like Jeezy, you done lived it. You done been there. You know what come with this shit.
Yeah.
You feel me? So for you to get on a song and tell niggas trap or die, some niggas that's living like that, so he motivating others. But for the other niggas, you supposed to tell them, hey, nigga, if you ain't for that shit, don't even, you know what I'm saying? So for the kids and shit that's coming up, go to school, man, do something. Cause you don't get nothing but death or jail out of this shit. You feel me? So I was telling them, you gotta tell both sides of that shit.
Yeah.
You feel me?
It's a really interesting point, right? And he brings up a very, very kind of like very deep, interesting dichotomy. And I think this is the type of thing why people love Rod Wave's music, is because he's talking about, Jeezy, you know what I mean? He basically, let me pull up the lyric real quick. It's from the song True Story, right? And, as far as like the context of what he says, he kind of explains like his past and his situation, right? He says just had to keep going. When I was asked out, I told him F punching the clock, I'll break in houses with Kareem. And F your favorite rapper, he ain't as gangster as he seem. I done met a lot of rappers, they don't live the life they say they live. They don't do the things they say they did. Jeezy told us trap or die, but told his son go to college. I'm a bottom boy survivor, I made it out my apartments. Last year I was thinking about robbing the same rap dudes for some robins, but life go up and down like elevators. Who would have known that we would count hella paper? So it's like he's saying that, like, he grew up listening to Jeezy and thinking, he told his son to study and rise. He told your sons to trap or die. That is actually pretty ruthless, but it's kind of true. He's saying you hear all of this media, it tells you to trap or die. It tells you got to trap, you got to get out there, but it's like, really, you don't actually want that for your own children. Like, you actually want the best for your children. And clearly when Rod Wave was younger, he was thinking he was going to be part of that culture. And slowly it took time. Even his uncle that had actually been through that had to come out, and his father had to tell him, like, yo, that ain't for you. And fortunately, they were actually able to get through to him and kind of save him from going down that route. But unfortunately, that didn't actually necessarily save him or his family from kind of going down some of those paths once again. And by late 2023, things would shift again because Rod's father actually ran into new legal troubles and picked up several charges. And he's currently still incarcerated. He's set to be incarcerated.
Wait, when was that?
You hear all of this media, it tells you to trap or die. It tells you got to trap, you got to get out there, but it's like, really, you don't actually want that for your own children. Like, you actually want the best for your children. And clearly when Rod Wave was younger, he was thinking he was going to be part of that culture. And slowly it took time. Even his uncle that had actually been through that had to come out, and his father had to tell him, like, yo, that ain't for you. And fortunately, they were actually able to get through to him and kind of save him from going down that route. But unfortunately, that didn't actually necessarily save him or his family from kind of going down some of those paths once again. And by late 2023, things would shift again because Rod's father actually ran into new legal troubles and picked up several charges.
2023. He said his pop's still locked up. I ain't gonna lie, I'm locked into this, bro, cause, bro, it's just like, not Rod Wave, bro. Every time, bro, I hear about this nigga getting arrested, bro, I just be like, Not my dog, man. Not my boy Rod Wave, bro. Not him, bro. But then when you really think about his songs, bro, it's all about codeine, bro. For real, bro. Like, that's the one thing I don't like about his music, bro. But even though, like, you know, he clearly being honest, it's like, bro, you need to just quit, bro.
And he's currently still incarcerated. He's set to be incarcerated into next year of 2026. So this actually is his father, Rodney Green, and you know, he's basically on a hold of some pretty serious charges. Basically, you know, he sentenced to 3 years. So burglary of an occupied dwelling, aggravated stalking, tampering with witness, stalking, credible threat, aggravated stalking. And he was sentenced to 3 years. So he should be coming home in 2026. It's saying 7th of July, 2026. But, you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, after everything that he kind of helped his son navigate to not go down the same path, he ended up getting caught up in some difficult situations. And that was the end of the tragic losses for Rod Wave's family, man, because in 2024, his mentor and manager, Uncle D, would actually pass away. And
I know,
you know, people are saying that.
I know some people have that perspective, like, well, it's better that he went to jail. At least he didn't die. You know, so that's when they say always look at the cup half full, not half empty. You know, because when people go to jail, bro, they could have died, bro. But, you know, they went to jail. So it's like, you know, going to jail is better than dying, right? You know, getting locked up, catching the case is better than dying, right?
His death was really linked to struggles with mental health. And Rod Wave would actually open up about this on the Montreality YouTube channel.
Life, like, you just, sometimes you get so caught up in living, you forget about death. Like, some things, some people, you just never even imagine them dying. Sometimes you just picture a person burying you. You know what I'm saying? So, since a kid, dog, I never looked at death the way other people did. I always had a funny relationship with death. Like, I always looked at it from a bigger perspective.
And if you don't want to talk about this, it's okay, bro, but I would, you know, see if you want to take a moment to remember your Uncle B and what he meant. I know, like, you know, I'm just getting goosebumps and just thinking about it myself. I can't imagine how you feel, but if you can just dedicate a moment to remember his warm presence and everything he meant.
Yeah, Uncle D, man. You know, since a kid, dog, I never really took death the way other people do. I mean, that was one of those situations, dog, where I just cried and cried and cried just because life, like, sometimes you get so caught up in living, you forget about death.
So clearly, you know, the loss of Uncle D, man, just really hurt him a lot and probably put him in a dark place. You know, he's saying that he gets so caught up in living, he forgets about death. But it's clear that one hit him hard, and that was someone who was not just instrumental to you know, his upbringing and his growth, but then also his career as far as Uncle D actually getting involved. Now, what is even more sad is that, you know, as time's gone on, even though he's had so much success in music, Rod Wave is still unfortunately getting caught up in street stuff. And I think everything that I've told you, including what I'm about to tell you, it all kind of contributes to why maybe, you know, he isn't somebody that wants to be caught lacking. He's maybe somebody that can't really be riding around without a firearm because of how serious it gets. Because just a month before this loss, apparently...
It ain't about the firearms, though, bro. It's about the drugs. You feel me?
Rod Wave actually got caught up in a shootout, and the authorities would actually then link him to a St. Petersburg gang called the Young Gangsters. Fortunately, he wasn't charged in this case, but that kind of opened the door to people, you know, having a little bit more background knowledge about his gang and the streets and everything that he was involved in, man.
We're very fortunate that no one was killed.
St. Pete Police Chief Anthony Holloway sends a message after another shooting plagues the city. A barrage of bullets Easter Sunday after a late-night altercation between 5 people outside the Sonic Sports Bar and Lounge.
There was one individual that appeared to have an issue with someone else. He called over to the other 4 individuals.
The shots didn't stop. Police recovered 60 casings from the scene.
It's a mass shooting. It occurred. 4 people were shot. We can't overlook it.
20-year-old Coventry Westby, 21-year-old Keith Westby, and 24-year-old Christopher Atkins, all found at this Manatee County home Wednesday morning, each charged with attempted second-degree murder, 5 rifles, 5 handguns, ammunition, $10,000 in jewelry used to identify them all, taken for evidence.
There was 5 individuals there. 3 have been charged. 2 more have warrants issued for them.
All involved with the group the YGs, or Young Gangsters. This Manatee County home Wednesday morning, each charged with attempted second-degree murder, 5 rifles, 5 handguns, ammunition, $10,000 in jewelry used to identify them all, taken for evidence.
There was 5 individuals there. 3 have been charged. 2 more have warrants issued for them.
All involved with the group the YGs, or Young Gangsters, who police say have been seen with St. Pete-based rapper Rod Wave. Wave was detained and released when search warrants were executed at 2 homes in Pinellas and Manatee County. His connection to the group involved is clear.
The vehicles that were used, as well as the 2 residences, were Mr. Green's name.
Tonight, the message from police to Rod
Cars
Wave.
in his name in the
crime like
crib.
This while 4 people who police say weren't the intended targets recovered from being shot.
You can't just randomly, wantonly shoot in a city at a crowd.
Connection to the group involved is clear.
The vehicles that were used, as well as the 2 residences, were Mr. Green's name.
Tonight, the message from police to Rod Wave.
He's got to distance himself from crimes like this.
This while 4 people who police say weren't the intended targets recovered from being shot.
You can't just randomly, wantonly shoot in a city at a crowd.
So unfortunately, okay, this is a situation that, you know, his name's been associated with, and it's definitely probably put him on the radar of the police. Now, obviously, that kind of makes sense, right? The way that Drew Findling's saying it, that, you know, he was unfairly targeted and they're trying to hit their quotas. Now, it's not unthinkable that he might have been under surveillance after this incident, because they're saying the cars were tied to him, the people were connected to him, and all this kind of thing. And unfortunately, his next major legal situation would happen after an argument with his girlfriend. And, you know, this was reported on by 1090 Jake, where this argument apparently led to Rod firing multiple shots into her G-Wagon.
Followed. While the surveillance footage had no audio, it appeared to detectives that Rod Wave was arguing with his girlfriend. She could be seen yelling at Rod, who in return pulled out a Glock 20 10mm pistol from under his left arm, opening fire at his girlfriend.
Why would you shoot up your girl?
Shots into her G-Wagon.
Your girl truck.
While the surveillance footage had no audio, it appeared to detectives that Rod Wave was arguing with his girlfriend. She could be seen yelling at Rod, who in return pulled out a Glock 20 10mm pistol from under his left arm, opening fire at his girlfriend's G-Wagon that he bought her for Christmas. The same G-Wagon. Glock 20 10mm pistol from under his left arm, was arguing with his girlfriend. She could be seen yelling at Rod, who in return pulled out a Glock 20 10mm pistol from under his left arm, opening fire at his girlfriend's G-Wagon that he bought her for Christmas. The same G-Wagon posted on her Instagram.
He shot her truck that he bought
Detectives
her.
would count Rod shot 14 times until the weapon was empty. 11 bullets would strike the G-Wagon, 1 round struck Rod's Rolls Royce, and 1 round struck a wall, while the 14th bullet was never recovered. While Rod was shooting, his associate was unfazed, as if he knew it was going to happen. He just continued to place things from the house inside of the SUV. Rod's girlfriend, on the other hand, ducked down and ran inside of the house in fear.
So apparently, the girlfriend actually called the police, and, you know, it was basically suggested that Rod had tried to kind of cover up the crime scene and flee the scene. He's involved in a lot of stuff, you know. So apparently, the girlfriend actually called the police, and, you know, it was basically suggested that Rod had tried to kind of cover up the crime scene and flee the scene. He's involved in a lot of stuff, you know. This is the last thing he really needs after everything else that happened.
She then ran from the house to a nearby neighbor, called her mother, telling her Rod Wave shot her car up, and telling her mom to call 911. Rod could then be seen on camera running through the front of the yard as detectives believed he was now panicking, knowing his girlfriend went to the neighbors to call the police. Rod's associate would also seem to panic as they both jumped into the SUV, but their exit was blocked by Mini Barbie's BMW. With Rod Wave driving, he'd reverse into the BMW in an attempt to push it out of the way, leaving his tires spinning. Pulling back up to the garage, Rod's associate would shut the garage door to prevent the shot-up G-Wagon from being seen. Rod would get out of the SUV while on the phone, and his associate would begin collecting shell casings. Rod would attempt to drive around the BMW, but ended up striking the staircase and blowing out his front tire, disabling the SUV. Getting out, Rod would grab shell casings near the windshield wipers, throwing them onto the stairs before calling someone else on his phone. Rod would lock the SUV, lock up the house, and leave through the back of the residence. Detectives would locate a damaged backyard fence, leading them to believe 300-pound Rod Wave broke the fence while escaping through the back.
Ah, man. Yeah, that's not the best way to go out, man. So look, Rod Wave is currently out on bail, okay? He's still facing charges related to the incident and, you know, the drug and the gun charges. He's got a lot going on, man. But I hope this video can give you guys a bit of an understanding.